Yo, what's up? I know I just made a video that's probably posting soon, but I just wanted to quickly go over something I was just considering on Tesla here as I was looking through it, just to look for a potential short position idea that I'm going to be brewing up here. So, as we see that Tesla here, well, this was one thing that I had posted on TradingView that got banned because I said too many F bombs in it, and it's unfortunate. It was just a speculation idea. But in October 2nd of 2022, we had earnings, and we were creating this consolidation pattern here, which was a large potential symmetrical triangle, support touch here, support touch here, support touch here. So we had one, excuse me, sorry, 1, 2, 3 support touches, and that was, whatever, around like 270 or so. And then at the top, we had a 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, and then a fake break and a drop. And then we ended up falling down. Let's see how much percentage, just for the hell of it. I didn't look at this particular idea till right now, as far as what I'm doing. So we had a drop off of earnings, 26%, and then a spike back up, and then a drop, a swift drop. If we were to take this just for the hell of it and see what, not saying that, past performance doesn't predict future results, of course, but I just wanted to take, 26% it was. Let me just find it. 26%. So a 26% drop would actually bring you back down to roughly 120.25, which is pretty interesting because you're going to see why in a few. If you guys were trading Tesla back around that 124 level, you'll know how that was pretty significant support at one point. So looking straight across here, you can see that this 168 area was pretty solid. 166 area was pretty solid support at one point, strictly based off of, well, really it was support based off of this one wick, so not that significant. But this support, this resistance of 208 was very significant. When we broke it, we fell all the way down to about 182.40 to 178.80. That's something also to keep in mind here for a next rally. It's going to be close to my area. Oh, there's 180 with a high wick of what? A high wick of 167.21. 167.21, high wick, consolidation between 154 and, we'll call it 133. So when we rallied up here, we broke through the 150 area and we had a straight up rally that went to 280, came down, we bounced, triple bounce off of really like 179.72, and then a huge rally, came down, tried to hold this 207 as support. We finally broke it, but we rallied back up, and then that was a short which came down, bounced off of 166, continued its downtrend all the way down to 105, which we have this potential downtrending area of support. Call it like something like that. We'll just do this. And then we came up here. This is where we double topped. We had the earnings, dump. Then we came up here, huge rally, double top, lower high, and a dump, right? So now we're back and we're chilling underneath this 167.21 with a low wick of 160. Excuse the noise in the background, someone's doing something. So 167.21 could be an area here short term up to about this 168. I like the 168 on the smaller time frame. If we get rejected there, we could come back down for another low push, maybe create a double bottom, and then a rally. Now, I have this potential idea here as well. Let me move into a different room because damn, they're loud out there. So we have this potential of this downtrending resistance. This is strictly, it's kind of off of this. If you look at it like that, it's kind of off of this. So whether or not it makes sense, rejection there, rejection got really tight and drops. So if it came back up here, would it come back up? If it came straight up on Monday, that would be around 179. or 178.80 or so. And then we had this low wick right here before the drop around 177.60. We had multiple bounces in this area from $176 to 176.40 or so. I'm personally thinking that over a course of a little bit of time in consolidation, this could get a break out. Now, whether or not this downtrending line ends up meaning anything or not, that'll be something to potentially think about later. But what I'm considering is the fact that if we came back up and we ended up finding resistance up in this 177, 176 area, that could be a very good area to potentially go for like a 180 put or something a little bit out. This will give the options some time to potentially become cheaper, and they'll be a little bit more affordable than they probably are now. And then we can look for potential idea of this being some kind of breakdown. If it doesn't get a rally at all, then obviously it continues to be weak if we can't get above the 168 or 169 area. But I'm kind of speculating that we will get another pop back up. There's going to be a lot of resistance up here at the 186.25 that we know of. That's another level that could potentially get retested again. There was pretty clear resistance up in that area, so there's a potential probability of this coming up that high as well, which would just make this look like an overall double bottom. That might fake some people out. Even this low break is causing a lot of fear. Is it smart to put calls in here? That I'm not sure yet. I'm not too sure on how I'm going to play this. For now, it does look like we are just trending slowly up. So if we were to potentially come back and retest the 164 and continue to hold this area as support, we could potentially put in some calls. We're kind of holding that right now if you look at it. If we go down to candle bodies here, we basically popped up here, tried to hold this 164 to 164 as support, flipped it back to resistance, and then we dropped. We popped up. We couldn't hold it as support. Then we fell down, used it as resistance again. We popped up. We back tested it right about here, and this was a pretty good entry, 163.95. And then we continued up, only to potentially start to roll back over again at the test of 166. So looking at this in a smaller time frame, maybe we have another retest of 164 brewing, unless we double bottom here. Another test of 164, and then a hold. If we do end up holding this, we could get a break of 166 in the coming weeks or days. And that could set up for like a little double bottom here that could bring us back up to 168. We'll have to be cautious around 168. This could take a little bit of time as well because of this little consolidation here. We could get some consolidation right here as well. So that could be something that could be brewing here soon. And then from there is where we have to decide what's going to happen. If it does get a nice large breakout from it, you can see that there was little to no support between these areas here. The stock just fell completely through. And the key area that we bounced from, like I said, was right around that 177 to 176. But until we get back up here, maybe it fills something up in this 84 again. I don't know how it's going to play out. So my key area to watch on the upside is really going to be that 176.40. And I'm going to watch it pretty closely upon retest of it. If we can get back up there, I think we will. But if we don't, then we're going to have to look at some downside targets. If we were to break this 160 and start flipping it into resistance, the problem for Tesla is that we didn't have too much support built anywhere from 146 up until where we are now. So if we were to fall, there's going to be a higher probability of us coming back to roughly 146, 150 will be a pretty strong psychological level, but the key support for me is really 144 to 146.50. And then below that, you kind of have this 132 area, which isn't too bad of an idea because what I was talking about in my last video that I talked about, the actual target of this potential symmetrical triangle here is roughly about 132. If we put it down, this brings us right down to, well, the target here is 133.16. So this could be where we actually might be heading, but do we bounce up first and then go for the low? That could be a possibility. So somewhere in this range is where the target is, and then from there we have to see how is this going to play out. Is that going to be where we end up bouncing? And then if we look on a smaller time frame, the key level that I like on the downside, which is way down here, so I'm not saying that we're going to head down there yet, but is this area right here of 125-ish. So you can see this is where Tesla bottomed. We made a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder, and then we back tested it perfectly, and then we ripped to the upside. So this was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful position. Will we have to come back to that area, or will we come roughly into this range of 137 to 132? That's what we'll have to see. But I don't think, personally, I don't think that we're just going to, just do this the whole way down, but maybe we do. I don't know. I think we'll get a nice bounce that comes in. A lot of people are buying the 160, and then you potentially get the roll, and it could turn into something that ends up being, a downtrend that ends up looking similar to this that could eventually bring you down, which means there'll be a lot of shorts, pops, drops in between. It's going to fake people out. If that does come into fruition, even something like this could make sense. If you draw this all the way out, maybe this will end up being a potential of a downtrending resistance, something like this, and we end up respecting this downtrending line until we eventually break it, which could signal us to go to like 180 first, drop, follow that support line down at the bottom, and maybe we end up building, a larger pattern. I don't know how it's going to play out, if it'll be like this or how it's going to brew. Of course, I don't have a crystal ball, but either way, whether this is the downtrending support or not, this will be what we're going to be wanting to watch, is this potential downtrending resistance. If we came straight up and we hit that tomorrow, it would be 186. If we went out to about Friday and hit it, it'd be about 180. If it took until about Wednesday of, May 9th, it would be about 178. So depending on how soon it hits it, that's kind of what I'd be looking for, is a rejection up in that range. This is where we broke down from this potential previous support line. Roughly, it's between 186.50 and depending on how it plays out, if this ends up being like a support line that we have to watch, it could actually be higher. But for now, I'm looking at this line here, from that wick to this wick to this rejection, and then a drop. So maybe we come back, retest that, and get a strong move off of it. But it depends on how it hits it. So I just wanted to put this out there just to show the significance of this range here from 68.50 down to 160. This is pretty critical. If you compare it over to Bitcoin chart, way over in the weekly, Bitcoin had a similar setup here, that we had a very strong range from, let's say, we'll call it a range from 35K down to 29.4. This was the key support right here in this we'll call it 32K to 28.6. This was the key area right here on Bitcoin as well. And once we did finally crack that low, that was when we saw a big mean drop that went all the way down to 15K, made an inverse head and shoulders, rallied back up to retest it, and now wondering, will we retest this and flip it into resistance, and then have to come back down and maybe retest that inverse head and shoulders before making a larger reversal pattern potentially, or just another downtrending resistance line. Even if we just clean the whole damn chart up, even though I didn't want to do that in the last video, we could just be potentially doing something like this. And if we put this resistance line here, right here, from, let's say, 32K down to 28.8 or so. Was it 28.8 or what was it? 28.9 to 30K or so, right? Then we have a potential possibility of this being Bitcoin's downtrending line right here. And if we lined up that first wick here and this second rejection wick here, it's about right there, we're potentially tapping that resistance right now. And then if we were to look at it from this potential support line and we brought it down like this, call it something like that, depending on how this all plays out, then if Bitcoin does just start to potentially reject on this line, it could potentially be moving its way down back towards this support. So I don't know how that's going to play out, obviously, but does that end up being a scenario? That's possible. There's a lot of bulls right now, but obviously I'm not saying it's going to go down to 38K. That's just what ended up being drawn in, but that is a pretty strong support. But the key support for me is really, around this 12K area. Yeah, probably 12K. That's where Bitcoin blasted through, used it as support. There was also a lot of resistance here as well, which is where we ended up bouncing, which does make sense right here at 15K. Couldn't hold any candle bodies above. We blasted up. Couldn't hold candle bodies above 12K. Then we finally broke through. A little bit of resistance here at this 20K, but complete blast through. Then a lot of support at the 28.2. Used it as support. Then that support broke. Came back up, now using it as resistance potentially, 28.6, 28.2, somewhere in there. So will we get rejection and have to come back down and potentially retest this 15K, make a double bottom, or will we lose that 15K eventually, come back down to 12K? That's not a bad possibility, and obviously losing that, then you have, not really, I wouldn't really call it 38, I would call it more so like, there's a lot of support around here. This was, let's call this resistance. Blasted through, flipped it, couldn't close below. Right here, held 77 as support. Then we used 11.12 as support. Let's see, 10K. Oh yeah, 10K was very big too. Then obviously that 10K. So needless to say, this is just something that we are looking at. I'm not saying that this is the exact top, but if you do blast through here, this could look pretty good. Once you start getting back into and above this area here and holding this as support, then you'd be looking at a very big breakout that could blast you all the way back to retest this resistance up at 50K to 45K. That would be the upside target, but I don't know if it's going to just do that, where it's just going to rally all the way up. I would expect a rejection and then a retest of some previous low, which is at least 24K. If we lose 24K, then that would be the signal that, holy shit, this thing's going to go a little bit further. But I like that 23.9 to 24K for now as a pullback zone and maybe a bounce that could potentially end up looking like that. If we weren't going to go even lower, then this is going to probably set up for a very nice trade. So I do like the ideas of grabbing shorts on the pops on Bitcoin until we start to reach 24K again, to 25K maybe even. There's double wick top at 25.2. But this is the key support right here. I know this was on maybe on Tesla, but I got off track. But I do want to just put this idea on the radar for Bitcoin and then also for Tesla. So that'll be my idea. I'm not in any trades on Tesla, but I am looking for a potential bounce to come in here and maybe start testing again the 180 or even the 177. Now that we brought some more buyers into this scenario, if nobody really wanted to buy it here, as it looks like obviously that was what happened, maybe some people will step in here and try to defend this. But then the people that were trapped up here might decide to sell out right here, and that could potentially push us further down
after we get a nice bounce. So that'll be something to consider. So anyway, that's about where I'm at. Let me know what you guys think about this, and peace.